you love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am The Wiz! And I'm here to review the 1988 drama The Last Temptation of Christ, starring Willem Dafoe, Harvey Keitel, Barbara Hershey, and David Bowie, directed by Martin Scorsese. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I avoided watching this movie mainly because it is a Jesus movie. I guess I'll get into my religious feelings right now. I was raised Roman Catholic, but at a certain age, I realized this isn't for me, and I've been an atheist ever since. And I've seen a lot of movies about Jesus. There's some meant for kids, some meant for adults. I kind of got sick of it for the rest of my life. I was like, okay, I'm kind of done. I kind of avoided watching this movie, but the only reason why I still had an inkling of wanting to watch it was, of course, Martin Scorsese. The fact that he is such a gifted, incredible director. I was like, well, he's got to do something a little different with this movie, so I'm not going to watch it right away, but I'll give it a shot at some point. And since I was doing movies about Jesus this week, I thought, okay, you know what? Let's give this a shot. Let's give The Last Temptation of Christ a shot and see how it turns out. Another thing that's pretty funny, too, for some stupid reason, I kept thinking to myself, well, it's a Jesus movie. Well, it does have Scorsese, and he does do violent stuff in his movies, but it can't be that violent, right? And then 1 hour before I went to watch the movie, I was like, let me check IMDb just to make sure. And I see severe sex, severe violence, severe threatening images. I'm like, oh no, what have I done? So I was like, okay, so here's what I'll do. If I watch it and I get really uncomfortable, I'll stop and I'll figure something else out. So I'll tell you what, once I press play, I don't think I ever stopped, unless to go to the bathroom. But I don't think I ever stopped. So this has a preview of what I think of the movie. So let's get into it. Let's get into the review of The Last Temptation of Christ, directed by Martin Scorsese. Before we get to that, let's get into the plot. This is a movie about the life of Jesus, from the time that he was a carpenter making crosses for the Romans to when he himself was put on the cross and crucified. And the last temptation part, you know what? I'm not even going to spoil that. I'm not even going to spoil what the last temptation is. But if you've read about the film and you heard about how controversial it is, maybe you will already know why that is. All right, so let me get to my 3 points for The Last Temptation of Christ. And my first point is it is visually Scorsese's best work. My God, I am surprised by how beautiful this movie is. Well, I really shouldn't to be absolutely honest, because Scorsese makes really visually compelling work. He always has, even movies I don't like. Temptation of Christ might be his best, not just for the way it looks, but how the visuals really enhance the story itself. The thing that I've noticed with a bunch of films that deal with this topic, or even any religious topic, especially with Catholicism or Christianity, is that they go one of two ways. They either go really gritty or they go really light. And this movie has this kind of medium ground that at first when you watch it, it doesn't seem that amazing, but it really enhances the story and the character, because the thing that the film does, I really appreciated, that I don't remember seeing a lot of when I was watching these films when I was younger. But then again, I was really young when I watched these types of films, is that it grounds the story of Jesus and makes Jesus much more of a realistic character. And why I was really surprised by the movie and the visual tableau of which Scorsese works with the oranges and blues and everything. It just worked incredibly well to create this world that the movie is based under. And when it goes into other directions, the color also pops in different ways. I think visually this might be Scorsese's best work. My second point, it's a powerful story about the burden of being special. Ain't no more special than Jesus, you know? You ask anybody, it's like, yeah, that guy's pretty special. And I think that's interesting that they went to this direction in this film. I will bet that if you go into other biblical stories about Jesus, there is talk and there is stories about how burdensome his life was and how hard it was to be him. But the movies don't really capture that very well. They either show him as a saint or a martyr, and that is about it, or both. They really don't delve into the human side, which is what I found so powerful about this movie, is that it really showed that, man, this is tough. This is something that you need to have a certain kind of personality and be a certain type of person to put yourself through this. The sacrifices that you have to put yourself through to make this happen. This film does an amazing job of actually showing all of that in this movie. This is also commending of the performance by Willem Dafoe, which Willem Dafoe is known for playing some crazy, offbeat, kind of disturbed characters. And when you tell people, he played Jesus, like, wait, what? The guy from Wild at Heart? Really? The guy from The Lighthouse? That guy? He played Jesus? What the hell? But he has this lightness about him in this movie, this very tenderness that he has that is really well done. But you don't believe he's effeminate. That, I think, is the thing that I think Dafoe does really well. He seems innocent throughout the entire film as well, but you can tell why he's a leader. You can tell why he leads men. And for someone to not be effeminate while not going through the things that men do is really tough to pull off. But I think Dafoe did an incredible job playing Jesus in this role. On top of that, the burden of being special, I think the movie does a great job showing that to be someone who is to be that kind of a leader shows that you have to put in a lot of sacrifice and you have to pretty much forfeit your life to do that, and it does it in such a powerful way. So with this point, I think this movie does an incredible job essentially humanizing Jesus, which I thought I would never think about in this, but that's kind of a few problems I've had with some of these movies, that they don't really humanize them and they make you just assume that you know the story, which is fine to a certain extent with some movies, but a part of me was like, well, yeah, but I want to know more about the character. And one problem I had with Passion of the Christ was all I knew is that if I didn't know the backstory really, and I know a lot of people, almost everybody does, but all I saw was a guy getting the shit kicked out of him. That's it. But this movie does an amazing job humanizing him and then making you sympathize with him at the end. And my third point, why is the music so damn good in this movie? When I was watching this movie, you'd have some of the music in there that is very atmospheric, but then there are some that just hit real well, like, oh my god, this is really good. And I am like bobbing my head back and forth like, this is really good music. I can't believe I'm bobbing my head to a Jesus movie. It just not only fits with the rest of the movie really well, but there's certain scenes that music picks up and it just lights a fire in you. It's just really good. I was really surprised by just how good the music is. So I went into the end of the movie with another killer track at the end of the movie going, oh my god, this is another good music. And then I see the original music composed by Peter Gabriel. I'm like, that's why. It's Peter Gabriel. So that's why the music is so damn good. I guess if you want some good music to listen to that is from a film soundtrack, maybe pick up The Last Temptation of Christ? I don't know. Okay, so who is this for? I would say this is for people if you want a thoughtful film about faith. The thing about faith that I think is that there is a blindness to it, or there is just a dedication of sacrifice that you have to go through to believe in faith to a certain point. Either everything will be okay or something will happen at all, whatever it is. And I think this film is a great personification of that, just through the character of Jesus himself and how Willem Dafoe plays him. So I think if you are a person that wants to have a thoughtful film about faith, I'd say check this movie out. I'd also say this is for some if you want to see excellent performance by Willem Dafoe. Again, like if you are a fan of Willem Dafoe, and I know if you are, you probably like some of his crazier work, I'd say give this a shot. This really shows him in a much more sensitive, deeper light than I don't think I've seen in him in a while. So if you like his work and you like him as an actor, definitely check this out. And of course, you want to see Scorsese's most personal film. He's talked about this in the past. I think this still is one of his most personal films. This is definitely a film from a filmmaker that put a lot of himself into it, and it really shows in the picture he made. It's a deeply personal film that I actually really like when directors do, because they put more into it than they do their other films. So if you want to see, I think it's one of Scorsese's best as well, but if you want to see probably his most personal work, check this out. Overall, I highly recommend The Last Temptation of Christ. I love this movie. I thought this movie was amazing. And I'm kind of disappointed in myself that I waited so long to see this movie. The visuals are astounding. The music's great. The performances are amazing in this movie. I think Dafoe is great in this movie. Keitel is good too. I like Harvey Keitel as Judas in this. But at times I'm like, I can still hear the New York in him a little bit, but it's still good. I want to also say I found it interesting that David Bowie was Pontius Pilate in this movie. I thought that was an interesting performance. Throughout the film, I was saying to myself, if he didn't have Robert De Niro as Pontius Pilate, he made a mistake. And then here's David Bowie going, okay, I get it. Never mind. Never mind. But powerful film, visually astounding, and just a incredible movie about the burden of being a leader and being special and to be like a savior to a people. Overall, I highly recommend The Last Temptation of Christ if you have not seen it. If you are avoiding it because of the controversy, I would really say give it a shot. I think you'll be plenty surprised by what you see. So overall, I highly recommend The Last Temptation of Christ. One of the best films I've seen this year. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you just listened to. Thank you for listening to this review. If you want to know what we're reviewing in the next couple days, you can look on the screen right now to see what's coming up next. If you liked what you heard, go ahead and leave a like on this video. If you want to discuss your opinion on the film or the review itself, please leave a comment. And if you want to hear more, subscribe to the channel. Thank you again for listening. I will talk to you next time.